Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Okoyemi Goddess, and if this is your first time here, you're very much welcome. If you're like one of my old subscribers, thank you for always coming back again and again. I love you guys. So in today's video, I'm talking about 10 qualities, 10 qualities that actually make the UK a very great place to live. So if you're back home watching this, wherever you're watching from really, but you're considering relocating, you want to jackpot, but you don't know which country to go to, or you have several options, you don't know which one to pick out of the several options you've got, don't worry, I'll be sharing with you, amazing qualities that the UK has, and maybe you may want to consider relocating to the UK. Okay, let's get started. Let's get started. So one of the very qualities that the United Kingdom has is actually the fact that you get free and quality healthcare in the UK, and this is particularly something that I love, and that's because in the last few years that I've spent in the UK, I've had to access the NHS over and over again. I know I've shared this before, but I live with very severe endometriosis, and I've had to have surgeries. I've had several treatments here, and everything was given to me at no cost. So if you probably live with a chronic illness, or even if you don't live with any chronic illness, but you know that at some point you would need medical attention, and you don't want to spend a dime on healthcare, maybe you should consider coming to the UK. Healthcare in the UK is free. You don't need to pay for accessing healthcare. Of course, there's some things we pay for, say medications on outpatient basis, like you're going to the pharmacy to pick up prescribed medications. Yes, you pay for that, but even if you're over a certain age, if you live with certain conditions, you don't even have to pay for that. If you're pregnant, if you're a nursing mother on maternity leave, you don't even have to pay for medications. Like all through my pregnancy, I didn't have to pay a dime on any of my prescribed medications. And even now that I'm postpartum, so you still have that access, that free access to medications, even 1 year after your delivery, 1 year postpartum, you're still like eligible to get free medication. So I mean, this is just something that I particularly like. So if you're considering that, or if that is like a major thing for you, if healthcare is like a major thing for you, like I said, if you live with any illness and you know that it needs to be managed properly and you don't want to spend money on it, I think UK might be the best option for you. I know there are some other countries that if you live in those countries, you would have to pay out of pocket for your healthcare. So if free healthcare is actually something that is very important to you, you may want to consider the UK. Next on my list is actually free primary and secondary education, and this particularly is very key to me, and that's because I'm from Nigeria. Back in Nigeria, a lot of us strive to put our kids in private schools, whether primary or secondary, and that's because of the state of education in Nigeria. I don't know where you're watching from, and I don't know which country you're primarily from, but if this is like the same in your own country, you may want to consider moving to the UK. So and another thing why I like about the free education, primary and secondary anyways, another thing I like about it is the fact that it is not just because the education is free, it is also because it is of good quality. So something can be free, but I mean not of good quality, but the education here is free, I mean primary and secondary, but it is also of a very great quality. So you might want to consider that. Of course, here in the UK we also have private schools. We have private schools really, so it's not like we don't have private schools, and the rich people still prefer putting their children, their wards in private schools, but the standard of public schools in the UK is actually very high as well, so you don't necessarily have to struggle to save a lot of money to now put your children in private schools. So if free and quality education, primary and secondary education is what you're considering, especially for the kids, and I'm saying this because I know that a lot of people are even relocating abroad, are doing that for the sake of their children. We want to give our children a better life. I mean, we just want to give them like a head start in life. So if that's what you're considering, you may want to consider moving to the UK. The issue of education, or still on that point relating to education, the fact that the UK also has reputable and world-class universities. So if I've talked about the fact that primary and secondary education is free, but let's even now come to university education. Of course, university education is not free in the UK, but the fact that UK has a lot of world-class universities, reputable universities, I feel like that is also a great point and something you may want to consider. Also, I know this is not applicable to like people coming in as students or people coming in as skilled workers, but as soon as you have your indefinite leave to remain, which is equivalent to permanent residence, or when you naturalize to become a citizen, as soon as you have either of those two I've just mentioned, you're eligible to apply for student loans. So that's just something you may want to consider if you want a country where you would have access to student loans for your university education or your children's university education, as the case may be. Then you may want to consider the UK. So the fact that student loans are even available is one thing. Another thing I also like is the repayment plan for those loans. I mean, it makes a lot of sense that they don't rush into paying back immediately after graduating until you start earning a certain amount, or until you start earning over a certain amount. So there's a threshold that you have to meet before you can even start repaying. And I know that there are several plans for repayment. I think there's plan 1, plan 2, plan 3, 4 and 5, I think, but you may just look it up on gov.uk. So there are several plans, and if you don't start earning above a certain threshold, you would not even you would not even have to start repaying back your student loan. So if this is something that you find very interesting or you find very meaningful, you may want to consider coming to the UK to reside. Okay, the fourth point is the fact that it is very, very close to Europe. So if you like traveling, I mean, you may want to consider coming to the UK. I love the proximity the United Kingdom has to Europe, and the fact that you can actually I don't know, if you're a traveler or if you like traveling, or if in the future you would want to explore other countries in Europe, you may want to come to the UK. You have easy access. Trust me, applying for any of these visas, I mean European countries, applying for their visas from the UK is actually very, very easy. And the moment you even become a permanent resident or you naturalize to become a citizen, it is just easy. You can pretty much wake up one day and say, okay, I'm going to Paris, wake up another day and say, oh, I'm going to Italy, and all of that. Do you get the point? So the proximity to Europe is actually a plus as well, so you may want to consider that. Next point is the fact that the life expectancy in the UK is actually very high. I'm a nurse and I actually know this. I remember when I started working in the UK newly, the first thing that crossed my mind, I can still remember, the first thing that crossed my mind then was that, why is it that they have a lot of elderly patients? Like, people live long in the UK, and that came to my mind even before I went online to check the statistics. I was just wondering, as a theatre nurse, there are times I would have patients who are like in their 90s coming for surgeries, and they will still recover well, go on with their lives. And I used to wonder, how will a 95-year-old, a 90-year-old, a 91-year-old come for, say, a knee replacement, a hip replacement, and they will do well during the surgery, and even post-surgery they're recovering so well. So I used to wonder. So that actually prompted me to go online to read about the life expectancy in the UK, and I realized that it is actually very high compared to where I'm from. And if that is what you want, I mean, you may want to consider the UK. And I think the contributing factor to that is actually the fact that the healthcare is free. So because people don't have to pay for their healthcare, so when they are sick or they are ill, they quickly go to the hospital. They don't have to stay back at home because they can't afford healthcare. No, that is not the case here. As soon as people notice any sign or any symptom, they ring their GP, they go to their GP or go to the A&E, or just report to the nearest healthcare facility to them. So that is, in my own opinion, I believe that is the contributing factor to the high life expectancy in the UK. The next point is the fact that the UK is actually relatively safe compared to other countries. So I know that you may want to say, oh, but gangs use knives in the UK and people get stabbed, every time in the UK. I know that, and I'm not going to deny that fact, but let's still not forget that if it's compared to other countries, I don't want to name other countries. I mean, I can still say that the UK is relatively safe. Where I'm from, there's a lot of insecurity going on. People get kidnapped. There's terrorism. There's a lot going on. So nowhere in the world is actually 100% safe. But I can still categorically say, from my own experience so far, that the UK is safer than some other countries. So if you're considering safety and security as well as crime rates, you may want to consider the UK, because the crime rate in the UK is actually lower than a lot of other countries, and it's actually relatively safe to live in the UK. The next thing I'll talk about is diversity. The UK is actually very, very diverse. It is multicultural, and something I've also realized about British people, or let me say people who live in the UK generally, because I mean, like I said, it's diverse. Something I've also realized about them is the fact that they are very tolerant of other people. So they are tolerant of people of other race, other nationalities, people of other skin colors, people of other religion, people who have different belief system. I just love that tolerance that they have, or that they possess. So if you're looking at relocating to a country that is quite diverse, that is, you know, multicultural, and that is very tolerant of who you are, where you're coming from, what you believe, and all of that, then you may want to consider coming to the UK. So going to the next point, I love the UK because of the proximity to Nigeria. Yes, I'm from Nigeria, and I just love how close the UK is to Nigeria. God forbid, like if you have to go home, if there's an emergency and you have to go back home, you don't have to panic, because in the next 6 hours you'll be home. I just love that about the UK. And I mean, I don't know where you're watching from, but if you're from Africa, you may want to consider the UK, especially if you have things you're doing back home. You have things that will take you back home every now and then, like you have to be back home, say every month, every other month, or every 3 months. If there are things that would always take you back home every now and then, you may want to consider the UK. I actually know a lot of people who moved to the UK just because of the proximity to Nigeria, not because of any other thing. Like they would have considered other countries, but because of that proximity, like people who have businesses back home and they are the ones running the businesses, like so. If that is something you love, I'm from Nigeria, and that's why I use that as an example. I don't know if your country is actually close to the UK, but if it is, then that might be a plus for you. So you may want to consider the UK if you're considering proximity. So another reason why you may want to consider the UK as a place of residence for you is the fact that the UK has excellent transportation links. I love the fact that the public transportation system in the UK is very efficient and effective. So if that is something you want to consider, then that's good for you. So you don't even necessarily have to own a car or drive a car to actually live comfortably in the UK. The bus system works very, very well. Like you can hop on the bus and be sure that you get to wherever you're going to in good time, as long as your trip is well planned. So I love that about the UK, and it's also very cheap to even use the bus. So that is one thing I actually love about the UK. Finally, this is the last one. So the 10th reason why I love the UK is the fact that you have a lot of job opportunities. People who live in other countries may feel like, oh no, I don't think this is true. Well, I'm saying this because I'm from Nigeria, and I've only lived in 2 countries, Nigeria and the UK. So it's safe for me to only compare the UK with Nigeria, because I've not lived in any other country. But what I would say is you would have a lot of job opportunities in the UK, and a lot of flexibility around the job opportunities in the UK. So if you're looking at a developed country with lots of job opportunities in different sectors and a lot of flexibility around those jobs as well, you may want to consider the UK. So yeah, those are the 10 qualities I believe, in my own opinion, are good reasons why you should come to the UK to reside with your family. So if you have any other questions, let me know in the comment section. If there are other qualities you think I have not mentioned, especially if you live in the UK, let me know in the comment section. Okay guys, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and smash the notification bell as well. So I'll see you in my next video. Bye.